Hello, my painting students. Today it is time to learn about the art of color. I know we've talked about the science of color, but today is all about how do artists use color? How do they know what color to pick? How do you mix colors? And what colors look good with other colors? And how do we use the color wheel to our advantage? That kind of stuff. So, first of all, you're going to need two different worksheets that you're going to fill out. Both of them are worth 50 points each. So, first, let me show you where to find those. They're located inside of your virtual sketchbook on slide 7 and slide 8. Okay, here and here. These are the two worksheets. You can see an example here that's been done by another student already. So for 50 points, you're going to fill this out. What you have here are a number of different color schemes. Color schemes are like groups of colors that artists agree work well together. So it's actually, some people call it color theory because it's, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just colors. And how can we prove that they look good together? It's just a theory. But over the centuries, artists have unanimously agreed, hey, you do this with these colors, it works. They actually look good together. So there is a printable sheet here if you don't have one. If you came and got your supplies from me, then you have this sheet. So that should be in your rolled up cylinder with your paper. Or if you don't, just go ahead and print this. You can click right here and you can get a copy of it. Same with the next page. Here's some student examples. You can click on those and enlarge them in your sketchbook to take a closer look and see what needs to be done. And right here is an example, okay? So I'm gonna walk you through these so you can see exactly, whoops, went one too far, exactly what I'm looking for so that you can follow directions and get your full 50 points. Today, we're going to talk about color schemes, color wheels, color mixing, all that kind of stuff. The artistic side of color. So buckle up. And I should tell you, when you go to do these, you can use any media you want. Maybe you've got some crayons or markers or colored pencils. That would be fine. I know this is painting class, but for this, it's really about putting the colors down, getting the points, understanding which colors work well, but I don't care what media you use. But if you want to, get out a paintbrush, some watercolors, or even your oil pastels, that is totally fine with me. All right, let's get off this page and share this one with you, which is today's presentation, the art of color. So first of all, let's break it down. Artists, they don't usually think of color in a spectrum, like a rainbow, like a scientist might. We generally like to put it in a color wheel. It's really nice because obviously you see your warm colors and your cool colors. You can easily see what's opposite or on the other side. You can see which colors are side by side, what's called analogous colors. It's really helpful. It's a nice kind of graphic organizer or tool to help artists. Once you get to be an old guy like me and you're 47, this stuff becomes, as we could say, intuitive, like riding a bike. You just get it. And you really don't need the color wheel anymore. But for this class, if you're new to color and you're new to thinking like an artist, you're going to want to fill in your color wheel because you'll reference it a lot. Sort of like a textbook. We don't have a textbook for this class, so you'll be filling in your own and trust me, referring to it often. So who uses a color wheel? I mean, it's not just art students, fine artists, paint color creators, graphic designers, the list goes on and on. Psychologists even, art therapists. Colors, oh, they're important. So there's lots of different ways to use a color wheel. I mean, some people will make one like this. Here, of course, is Sir Isaac Newton's original color wheel. Make it a little more circular there. Some people like to see it like this. You know, it's everyone's got their own sort of way to organize it. Kind of like this one. This is cool because you do have different types of yellows and different types of oranges and so on. And you know these colors, right? There's red, and there's pink and maroon. Red, light red, dark red, that kind of thing. They just go on and on. So if you want, you can find and print your own color wheel. But to get points for my class, just follow along. We'll fill hours in. So I just grabbed a bunch because I was just impressed by how many there was. And look at this one. This is wild. Here you have color in a color wheel, but it also shows it going up and down a value scale. So it might be lighter or darker, kind of cool. So maybe blue up here would be baby blue, but right here it's sky blue, and down here it's royal blue. Anyway, just interesting. So what I really want to talk to you about is color schemes. So there's a number of different ways to kind of group colors into families, and we call them color schemes. And if you understand these, you're going to be an amazing artist. The first one, this is really basic, is called primary colors. Now, just to go back 1 second, this is on your sheet. Okay, so if you go back to your color wheel sheet, which is, let's go back 1 second here. Here we go. Oh, stop sharing. Come on. Here we go. Here we are. Here's the one I'm talking about. On this one here, you'll see one that says primary colors. I believe yours is near the top. Let me just double check. This is the one I made for you folks. Yeah, there it is, right up top. So this is like going back to first grade, folks. You're going to fill in right now, fill in red, fill in blue, fill in yellow. And the next one we're going to go to, these go pretty much in order, is purple and green and orange. So these are going to start with some simple ones that you likely know, but then we're going to get into some really kind of wild ones that you might not know, like split complementary and achromatic, and what are neutrals and fluorescence and that kind of stuff. So try to follow along as I go through this presentation. Have your media ready to go. That's your art supplies, your paint or your markers or crayons or colored pencils. Try to follow along and we'll fill these right in. All right, back to the presentation. So the first one is primary colors. And they, of course, we've talked about those for a second. They are the main three colors. These are the colors that make up all other colors. Also, you can't make these colors. I mean, you could start with them, but you can't make them. So go ahead and color those in. Now, if you need to stop this video or pause it or fast forward, maybe I'm going too slow, you can do that. But here's something cool about primaries. Again, they make up every color. When you go to the paint store and you see like those 5,000 colors, it all starts with those three, okay? Yeah, sometimes they add a little white or a little black or a little gray, but essentially it's those three colors. How do they make you feel? Typically, if you just had those three colors, they're going to be kind of childish. They're basic. They're primary. They call them primary colors. So they kind of have an association with, well, clowns and kids and youth and babies and that kind of stuff. Heck, if you go to a restaurant, which may or may not be open right now, they may give your son or daughter or kid a pack of crayons. They're probably going to give them those three colors. Because if they're super talented, 6-year-old artists, they would know that they could make orange or purple or green. Anyway, let's move on to secondary colors. So of course, this is what happens when you mix a primary and a primary, you get a secondary, like orange. Some call it violet, I call it purple or green. And so that's like the second branch out, hence the word secondary. So they're a little more sophisticated. Typically, I think of like fruits and veggies. They're not the most appealing colors, if we're being honest. I mean, do you own a pair of orange pants or do you have a purple shirt? Would you drive a green car? Actually, I do have a green car, but mine's dark green. But typically these colors are a little bit off-putting. Like you don't want to eat a lot of green food and purple food. And I don't know, maybe for you, you're saying, well, I would, but they're just different, okay? Anyway, let's move on to the next one. Now these are the next branch out. Some might call them tertiary, or a word is called tertiary, primary, secondary, tertiary. That might be a mouthful. So we're going to go with intermediate because they're in between like a primary and a secondary. And those are colors that you might have heard of before, like vermilion or marigold or magenta or indigo or teal, or some call it aquamarine or chartreuse. So you might know the names. They're a little more sophisticated. I think you'll agree. They're definitely more interesting than primaries and secondaries. When you see works of art made with those, it's kind of curious, like, huh, those artists are using colors that aren't just in a box of 6 crayons, or maybe 8 crayons if you get the black and white. So they're a little more sophisticated. So what am I saying here? If you're an artist, you don't use paints out of the tube. I don't. I never just take my red and my yellow and blue and like paint with those right out of the tube. I always mix a little bit to make them interesting and different and more sophisticated. Remember that as an artist. Seriously, if someone's looking at your artwork, you don't want it to look like it's done in elementary school. You want to make it look like you are an artist and you know how to mix colors. All right, let's go to the next one. You guys should know this. Warm and cool colors. So for this one, and on your piece of paper, you're going to color in purple or blue or green, which for me, I mean, I think about, you know, cool shaded grass, or I think about water, icy things. The warm ones are obvious. Think about the sun, fire, lava, a hot burner. They seem warm. In the world of art, they can make you kind of feel a little bit warmer or colder. For example, these ones on the left all have that kind of chilly, kind of cold feeling. Whereas even if it's the same image, this one seems a little bit warmer. I mean, obviously it is, but one seems kind of depressed and sullen and cold. And this one just seems like maybe more optimistic and maybe warmer and like she's waking up, the sun's just kissing her face. I mean, artists use that to their advantage, okay? They use color to make something feel a certain way. So you could use that to your advantage. Next up, we've got complementary colors. So these are opposites on the color wheel, like blue and orange, like our own Detroit Tigers. Here's the deal about opposites. And it could be blue and orange, or it could be teal and kind of an orangish red, like a vermilion. Any one that's opposite on a color wheel, here's the thing, they actually make each other look louder or brighter when they're side by side. You can't get more contrast than opposite on a color wheel. I mean, think about the darkest, purple, and the lightest, yellow, really opposite, right? Now, people know this. People that are in advertising, people that make cereal, people that make items they want to sell off the shelf, they want to grab your attention. What grabs your attention more than contrasting colors that really make each other loud? People that make cereal boxes, they know this. Next time you're going down the cereal aisle, check out the cereal boxes. You'll see what I mean. Not only cereal, I mean, sports teams, universally, and that's why this is a color scheme or color theory, because people agree those look good together. So there's something to think about. Wait, as an artist, are you saying that we could use complementary colors and people would look at it and go, hey, those work? And yeah, that's the idea. All right, let's move on to one that's very similar. Maybe you've heard of this before. It's called a split complementary color scheme. It's not exactly opposite because yellow and purple would be opposite, but instead of yellow, you split and you go to the two that are just left and right of yellow. Here's a few more examples you can see down here. So it's a 3-color combination, not just 2, but again, universally, artists over the centuries have said, you know, those 3 colors look good together. We should give it a name. We should call it split complementary colors. Interior designers know this. I mean, they just do that. They put those 3 colors together and you look at the room and you go, huh, that really works. So it's not just yellow and purple, as you can see. It's yellow and kind of a magenta color or kind of an indigo color, kind of a bluish, purple color. It just works. I don't know. It is how it is. It's not just blue and orange. It's blue, kind of a yellowish orange. I'm sorry, reddish orange or a yellowish orange. It's agreed upon. Artists think it works. I kind of agree. They look good together. Anywho, the next one up is monochromatic colors. Now that word mono, I'm sure you've heard that before. Mono means one. In fact, it's kind of like uno, mono. And chromatic, chrome means color, chromatic. So one color. So here's the deal. You could do a whole painting with, well, kind of one color, but if you added white or you added black to it and whatever the normal hue is, let's say green. Let me show you an example. So this is a monochromatic blue painting. It's got blue and dark blue and really dark blue and light blue and baby blue and sky blue and royal blue. And it's all blue. In fact, all of these examples are monochromatic. Some artists like to work that way. So in your boxes, just pick a color. You can make it green, but try to find a light green or a dark green, or you could press light and then press hard. But you need to know that one. Some artists, that's their thing. They just love using one color, and that's okay. If you use lighter and darker shades of it, it works. Another one to talk about is achromatic. And you know, we talked about asymmetry. That little A in front means no color, not colored. So yes, that means gray. It's a bit like a value scale, basically. White, light gray, middle gray, dark gray, black. Those are all achromatic. So yes, of course, you could do a painting. I've done one of these before, where you don't use any colors in the rainbow. It's just black and white. Have a nice touch to it. That's achromatic. So for that one, you know, you could even use a pencil if you don't have a gray crayon or black or white. There you go. Let's move on to analogous colors. Now we're getting into the more sophisticated ones. Analogous is a word that means, you know, kind of like side by side, or it means it's like next to, it's like they're your neighbors, or it's very similar to, like you could use that word in everyday language, like, well, that is analogous to this. That means it's very similar to this. Some would say only 2 colors are needed. Some say 3 colors or even 4 colors. It could even be 5 colors. But the point is, think of it as neighbors. Like here's you and your neighbor to the left, and your neighbor to the right. You guys are all analogous with each other. Now here's the deal. It could be any 2, 3, or 4 colors. It could be these greenish yellow ones, or maybe these, you know, purpley red ones, or maybe these bluish green ones. You'll have to decide on this one which 3 or 4 you want to put in there, but they work well together. If you're going to have a family of colors, a color scheme where they're all like next to each other, well, that makes sense. They're all kind of related, okay? So, you know, it's not like you're just picking that one, and that one. They kind of work. So here are some examples of analogous color schemes. I think you'll agree. Yeah, it's not exactly monochromatic. It might be warm, it might be cool, it might be warm and cool. But they are side-by-side colors that work. Now there's another one called triadic. So for this one, again, you're gonna have to pick any 3 colors you want. But imagine if on your color wheel, you had an equilateral triangle and it was on a pivot and you could just turn it and spin it. And obviously those 3 points would be equidistant from each other. And they're always gonna land on 3 colors. Well, those 3 colors are pretty different from one another. And surprisingly, they look good together. It's kind of like a split complement, but a little different. And we have a name for it. It's triadic. So for this one on your sheet, just pick 3 colors. It could be the example here where you've got your straight up, looks like a yellowish orange, kind of a teal color, and a, you know, it's hard to tell, but kind of a reddish purple or magenta color. I mean, it could be primary colors. That would work. Secondary colors. Those are triadic. But it might just be tertiary colors or any color combination. All right, next up, we have 3 at once. Tints, shades, and tones. Now, you might have to unlearn or sort of relearn a little bit. Tints, when you think of tints, you might think of tinted windows in your car, or you know, tinted sunglasses. But in the world of art, a tint is adding white to it. So if you have a color like blue and you add white or you tint it, you get like baby blue. Okay, if you have a tint of red, it's pink. A tint of green is like mint green. So tint is adding white to a color. Now, shade is the opposite. When you add black to a color, then you get a shade. I hope that makes sense. Like it's in the shadows. Like you draw the shades, it's darker. I got my shades on. So if you add black to the color blue, for example, you get like navy blue. If you add black to red, you get maroon, okay? If you add black to green, You don't just have green, you have like forest green. Um, so that's how tints and shades work. So when you color those in, I don't care which color you use. You could just pick whatever, blue, but make it like light blue or dark blue. And then a tone, this is weird. A tone is when you add white and black. So it's like almost like adding gray. When you add gray to a color, it tones it down, literally. So your red is no longer like stop sign red. It's like, oh, weak red. Because when you add gray to a color, you sap its energy, you take it away. It's just what black and white does. White can still keep a color bright. Black can still keep a color pretty colorful, but gray, oh, it just takes the life out of the color. So it's actually good. If I might say to you at some point, ooh, that's bright, you should tone that down. That's literally what I'm saying. I'm saying add a little gray to your color, a little black, a little white, and subdue it, make it weakened, okay? So for the tones one, if you're drawing something blue or something, what happens if you add blue and some pencil or some blue and gray? It's gonna be weak and toned down. So that's what I'd like you to do for that one. Now, these last few we're getting into, this is kind of outside the norm of the art of color, but these things happen. Like neutral colors. There's actually no colors here. These are not colors you would see in a rainbow. You're not going to get these in a box of colorful crayons, but they exist. They're black, they're white, they're gray, they're brown and tan. You're never going to see those in a rainbow. And if you can't see it in a rainbow, it's a neutral color. If it's not on a spectrum, if it's not in a color wheel, I mean, some would argue they're not colors. Some say that black is not a color because it's actually no colors and white is all the colors. That's the scientific explanation. As far as art is concerned, I mean, yeah, you can buy a tube of black paint. You can get a crayon that says white on it. So we artists call them colors. Science doesn't. Brown, you have a crayon that says brown on it. It must be a color, but really, it's it's kind of a neutral color. Anywho, just for that one, use some neutrals. Next up, I forgot we have some examples here of some neutral colors. Oh yeah, this is interesting. You may or may not know this. When you mix two complementary colors, you get brown or a kind of a grayish brown. You get a neutral color. So when you mix orange and blue, you get gray or brown. When you mix red and green, you get like a gray or brown. Seriously, you'll have to try that. We'll do that this semester. So this is going back to complementary colors. Anytime you mix opposites, they make brown. They make neutrals. Kind of weird. Like it just takes all the energy out of them and you end up with a neutral. All right. Next up is something really weird that happens. It's called fluorescent colors, okay? First of all, these were not even on anyone's radar, say 50 years ago. I remember fluorescence coming out back when I was in third grade. So that would have been, like 1980 or something. Anyway, fluorescents are manufactured, okay? They're chemically made. And there's a definition here. If you want to read about it, you can. But basically, think of it this way. Try to explain it the best way I can. With most things, let's say this pair of, let's grab something here. Like, got this puzzle here. All right, so this blue. When light hits this blue thing, every color is absorbed and light, reflects into your eye and you say, hey, that's blue. And it's kind of a 1-to-1 ratio, absorption, refraction, reflection. Now with fluorescence, it's a little different. It's not just 1-to-1. It's like so much gets absorbed, but like instead of one part hitting your eye, it's like 1.5 hits your eye. It's kind of a more pronounced scientifically. It's a louder color. So when you see it, it just looks like a visual anomaly. And what it is, it's chemical based. There's certain chemicals in the paint or in the, this actually happens in the natural world with birds and some fish and some insects, where when light hits it, when it reflects into your eye, you go, what is going on there? And it's not normal. It's fluorescent. Now, you may not have fluorescence to fill in these boxes on your sheet. Or if you do, if you have some highlighters, great. Even one color would be good. But it's a visual anomaly. You don't see it much in the natural world, but we humans have harnessed this power. We've learned the chemical composition, which is over my head. I'm an art teacher. But we can actually harness this and make these colors bright, and we can do it with a whole spectrum. It's just cool. Back in the 80s, when I was a younger man, everyone had these fluorescent coats and fluorescent shoes and shirts. And it was all the rage because it was really kind of fairly new. And now we're kind of over it. Maybe it will come back. But if you were on the ski slopes as a snow skier in the 80s, oh, fluorescents were in. All right, just a couple more. So again, here's just a few examples of how you might see it, especially pronounced if you're under, say, a black light. Ooh, they just glow. But, you know, I think probably scientists probably dissected some of these animals or plants and chemically found out how to do it. That's just kind of cool. All right, so now here's one that's kind of weird. These are metallics, and they do kind of have color. They're kind of neutrals, but some, like copper, you might say has kind of an orangey color, and gold is kind of a yellowy color, and silver is kind of a grayish, whitish color. Another weird thing happening. Here's the deal. When light hits these objects, it can't totally get absorbed. Some of it is reflecting, but it's shiny because you have this, you know, metal, it's metallic. So you've got this surface that's burnished and shiny. And so it plays tricks on your eyes. And so there is some color, as you can see in these examples at the bottom, but it's all about light and how light hits it and its absorption and reflection and refraction. So if you do have a colored pencil or even a graphite pencil, you could press and kind of get that graphite, that lead color. You may have gold and copper and brass and those kind of colors to fill in those boxes. But if you don't, just fill in one with graphite, maybe two if you can. But again, it's kind of weird. It is color, but they're metallics. So that is the art of color. And what I'd like you to do, let's go back to our worksheet really quick, is make sure you fill this in, that you get all these different color schemes in here, because we're going to refer to most of these, probably not these bottom few. I just figured we should talk about them. Now, for this one here, what I'd like you to do, let me open this up, expand it. I would like you to fill in your color wheel, the primaries, the secondaries, the intermediate ones. And if you don't have all of those colors, then you're going to have to mix some. So for sure, you're going to have yellow and green, but you might have to kind of mix yellow and green, make it yellowish green. And it is called chartreuse, but most artists will call it yellow-green. And yes, we know blue-green is called turquoise or teal or aquamarine, or you might have a crayon that says dolphin sunrise. We come up with crazy names for them. In art, we call it blue-green because we always name the primary first and then the secondary next. So yes, it's blue-violet. You might call it indigo. Red-violet, magenta, and so on. So color those in. Also quickly color in these complementary colors. Those are really important. We're going to use those a lot this semester. Really understanding and getting that ingrained. What's opposite? Kind of important. For the full 50 points, I'd like you to fill in these three too. Now, this student decided to make things a little bit more, say, literal. They did use analogous colors, like blues and greens and purples, you know, colors that are side by side. But they made a scene with clouds and rain and a person with an umbrella. And for warm colors, they really did it literally, the sun. For cool colors, snow and a snowman. That's fine, but I would much rather see you guys do something abstract, what we call non-objective or no objects. So like this example here, yes, these are analogous colors, these ones right here on the color wheel. I don't know what it is, but I kind of like it. Same with these, it's warm colors and it's cool colors, but it's more abstract. So humor me and do that instead. So for 50 points, fill in this worksheet. For another 50 points, fill in this worksheet. And next time I see you, we will talk about the psychology of color. How do they make you feel? All right, folks. See you next time.